tell me, what was the first step? Like, what did you do to when you went, oh my God, I don't want my son to be like me? One, how'd that make you feel?
Yeah, dude, it was wild, right? Because I have an older daughter, right? So and her and I had done amazing together, right? And by all measure, every measure, I was an incredible father, right? So I knew it wasn't about being a father, right? I knew that this was a thing with raising a man.
Mm.
And I knew then, and my father and I always had our relationship was strange. We just didn't like each other, right? I mean, we were father and son, but there was just this dislike for each other. And in our house, I have a brother, and we basically were. I was my mother's son, my brother was my father's son, and that's how we ran our house. My mom died, and essentially I became the island, right? So now I was on my own. So I was just moving through life and just kind of grinding a bit on what I'm supposed to do, right? How am I supposed to act? And for me, buried in drinking, I was a extremely heavy drinker. I was the guy that could outdrink everyone. Anywhere we went, could
And
just
probably proud of it.
oh, dude, yeah, right. And I was the guy that was dangerous to hang out with other people, right? I mean, because I would get other people so hammered, and the next morning, right, 5:30, I'm at the gym, right, and I'm just moving through my day. I didn't have hangovers chasing me. I didn't get sick at night, right? I was just moving through the day, but it was destructive, and it was destructive for
Mm.
the people that hung out with me, and it just was. I mean, the reality behind that was I hated every second of it, right? I didn't enjoy being out. It was one of those things where it just like we would go out, I would come home and be like, all right, I need a break. And later that night I'm out doing the same thing again, hanging out with my buddies. And it was just this ache of I've got to figure this out. And for me it was looking ahead to, oh, if I just have some more money, right? If I just have this next title, right? So I threw myself into work. Work became my identity, right? I was the guy that could fix anything. I was the guy that would help anyone, right? I was the people pleaser. And, for me, I started to just allow myself to really look and say, why do I feel a certain way? That question I had about my son and just knowing I couldn't raise him, it was really around, I knew that I didn't have a good upbringing, but I couldn't remember anything about my childhood. So I remembered physical violence, right? I remembered all that stuff, but my entire childhood was just lost. We lived in upstate New York until I was 15, and I just didn't have much recollection about that. But it was still just this, and you said it earlier, is identity. I didn't even know who I was. I was successful, right? I was all this. So I started just asking myself, like, what's the truth? How do I really feel about this? How do I really feel about that? And I started letting myself tell the truth a little bit. And I started surrounding myself with some people that were helping me. And I've done psychedelic work. I've done some therapy work. I did internal family systems therapy, which is just ridiculously powerful. And as I started to do that stuff, I started to uncover certain things. And I would be in a therapy session and I would just say something like at one point I said, I hate everything about work. I hate my job.
Hmm.
And to the point where the whole room would stop, right? And the person I would be in therapy would be in therapy with, she would look at me and say, did you mean what you just said? Right? And I would just say,
Yeah.
yeah, I had never let myself consider that, but yeah, I hate that. I actually don't want anything to do with work. And that was
Because
such
hate's a very strong word, which is why she would
oh
have brought it up.
it was such everything was such an opposite from what life looked like, right? It was just like I would be doing this thing and I would look at it and say, I can't stand it. I actually would rather be homeless than I would be doing that.